Welcome to Stopping Goliath. My name is J Kimmel, and today we're going to be discussing a teacher in the UK who lost his job really just because he's a Christ follower. And as always, if you look in the description, you'll find links to articles. Today, there's an article from the Christian Post, and it is entitled UK Christian Teacher Faces Potentially Career-Ending Decision for Misgendering Trans Student. And today really isn't about the transgender movement. It's about a lot more than that. So stay with me. And by the way, if you think others should hear this truth, then please like this video, share this video, comment on this video. I would love to hear what you think about this topic. And please subscribe to our channel and hit that notify bell so that each time we drop a new video, you'll be able to hear what truth we're talking about this week. All right, so there's a teacher, again, this is in the UK, and his name is Joshua Sutcliff. And in 2017, he was fired from his job because there were a group of female students who had worked on a project, and one of those girls identified as male. In other words, she was a trans-identified student, but he referred to the group of girls as girls. He said, "Well done, girls." And for that, he was fired from his job. And now he's in front of this council, and they're considering permanently banning him from teaching, partially based on that one event. You see, in England, they have something called the Teaching Regulatory Agency. And apparently their job is to hunt down people who don't subscribe to their politics and make sure they're taken out of the educational system. And so this particular young man has been targeted, and unfortunately, he also lost his job in 2019, just 2 years later. So he gets another teaching job, and he's fired from that job because he referred to Muhammad as a false prophet. And that's kind of interesting. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, because that wasn't even on school grounds, and it wasn't even to students. So essentially, he's been accused of sharing his pro-Christian beliefs, his anti, what's popular beliefs with his students, even though the Secretary of State for Education in the UK says that any teacher, if asked direct or invited to share his view by a parent or a student, is perfectly at liberty to say, with equal marriage, as with adultery, divorce, or abortion, what their own moral view might be. In other words, they're not supposed to stand up in front of the class and just tell people what their opinion is, but if someone asks, they're allowed to tell. And that's exactly what happened in several cases with this teacher. Literally, a prayer group has asked him what his views are. He has responded, and they don't like his answers. So in general, what this teacher has done to try to navigate the educational system in the UK is he just simply doesn't refer to any gender-specific pronouns. He just says you, or, if he was in Texas, he'd say y'all. He wouldn't say a gender-specific pronoun. And for the most part, that's helped him. But obviously now he's lost 2 different positions, and they're considering getting him out of the system completely. And ironically, I mentioned that he called Muhammad a false prophet. He also referred to Islam in this way. He said, the fruit of Islam is not peace, it's division. And if you're wondering where he said this, on YouTube. He has a YouTube channel. And so they've found things outside of school that have nothing to do with his teaching career, and they don't like his opinions. But today's video is really about far more than a teacher in the UK losing his job. Let's face it, most of you don't live in the UK. Most of you live right here in America, and probably a lot of you right here in the great state of Texas. But the truth is that this is about far more than what's happening in Europe. You see, it's about the spiritual season that we're in, and it affects the entire planet. Christians living in the East expect persecution. If you live in China, for example, and you're a believer, you expect them to arrest you if you meet and in an organized church. You expect them to burn down your church. That's a normal part of life in many places in the East. If you're in Nigeria, you expect Muslims to attack you, to try to kill you. That's unfortunately normal in the East. But what's happening in the West is that our opposition is really testing the fences. In Australia, for example, you can go check it out. There are video after video after video of people being arrested for not wearing a mask during COVID. What can they get away with? Here in the US, teachers losing their jobs for praying or having, a Christian perspective on life. That's happening in the UK. It's happening here. Much worse in Canada. They're arresting pastors up there who simply are trying to gather. There is an anti-Christian wave moving across the West. And that's what I really want you to think about today, and I want you to be aware of. And that is that there is a change in the season that we're in. The Bible tells us, be aware of the season. When you see the fruit trees starting to bud, you know that summer is near. Well, the same is true for us. When you see all of these happenings on the earth, when you see people getting arrested because they're Christian, when you see our own government doing all the things, and you can watch the other videos and see the things our own government is doing to persecute Christians, it should let you know that the next season is either close or it's here. I personally believe that we are in the last days, and I want you to know it as well. And the question then becomes, as always, what can we do about it? The first thing, as always, we should do is go to our Father in prayer, because he has power far beyond anything any of us can do to change the culture here on earth. And we need to start on our knees and start with prayer, because that's where our biggest power comes from. Also, if you listen to the mainstream media primarily for your news, my recommendation is stop. You're not going to hear this story on the mainstream media. It's just never going to appear. You're never going to hear about the Christian last week who was burned to death inside his own church. You're not going to hear that on mainstream media, but you will find stories that will tell you what's happening in the world if you search out Christian-based media. And there's some good media out there. If you don't know who it is, message me, make a comment. I'll be happy to post it in the comments. If you want to know, I'll give you some suggestions of where you can look. And the last thing is, please share this video. There are other people who need to know what you just heard. And like the video, subscribe to our channel, and as always, hit that notify bell so that you know when there's new information that you can share with your friends. I really want you to prepare yourself for the season that we're in, because if you do that, and if you warn others of the season that we're in, then when the end does come, they will be very, very glad that you did.